Welcome to the next episode of the Awake Asia podcast, where each conversation I interview experts and thought leaders from around the world that share topics surrounding health, fitness, entrepreneurship, and conscious living to help you live a fitter, healthier, and more purpose-driven, conscious lifestyle. In this episode, I interview Josh LaJaunie. He was one of the most inspiring people I've met. I'm honored to have him on the very first year of the Plantfit Summit. He was the first speaker I invited to the event, and he said, yes, I was stoked. And now, to have him on the podcast is incredible. This guy is as real as you get. Beyond the fact that Josh lost 200 plus pounds by changing the way he identified who he was, he has overcome mountains of obstacles to get to where he is today. From sick to fit. He re-identified himself as an ultra-endurance athlete, competing in some of the toughest races in the world, and even landed himself on the cover of Runner's World magazine. Though we haven't met face-to-face, Josh, I look forward to that day. No doubt I'll be trailing behind you and Emily if we do go out for a run. On to our conversation. This is Josh's story. Firstly, thank you. I've been following your journey on Instagram. And when I see you doing the strength training and doing your pull-ups, yeah, girl, go get them, brother. I love it.
I love it. I love being able to hoist myself with my own power. That's so different compared to what life used to be for me. Like people don't understand. Like a single pull-up used to be like just a pipe dream. Like I could have jumped up and got a pull-up and maybe held myself there for a little while. But as far as like doing pull-ups like I do now, slow and controlled pull-ups.
How many can you pull now?
In a row, probably only 12.
Oh, only 12.
But I do sets of 6 or 8 just and that's how I keep and then do push-ups between and stuff. But I like it's similar to running to me. It feels like a groove, like a human specific groove to be in physically, to be able to run and pick myself up and pull myself up over things. That seems like sounds like human to me.
Yeah, and you always talk about the human animal, and that's our human nature, what we're born to do. We're born to push, jump, lift, all that kind of stuff. And have we gone so far away from the essence of who we are that we actually need someone to motivate us to move?
It is. It's so crazy how really sort of honorable sort of aspirations of we want to be comfortable and secure, but how those things have extrapolated over. My mom's taken a real proactive role. I'm super proud of her. She's a teacher, and that's what the movement needs more than anything is people to be taught how and why to make this change. Like instead of it just being another weight loss hack or another, or an ethical thing to do because you I love my dog, so I'm going to stop eating pigs. But I'm going to eat like pancakes and vegan butter and you know what I mean? So to teach people like the basics of lifestyle medicine, basically, but through the food that's where the rubber meets the road, I think. And it doesn't take PhDs and just takes regular folks, especially not as, it can be people that aren't PhDs can help. But no, those like the regular people are the ones who can reach the most. They can relate to a bigger swath of people, So the more that regular folks engage in teaching 5, 6, 8 people at a time how to do this, I think the quicker will affect that overall trajectory of human health outcomes in today's environment,
Back to what you're saying, I mean, in terms of regular folks, I mean, regular folks need to feel the benefits of what this lifestyle can bring, to feel like you and I feel. You want to share it with the world. And, even through the Plantfit Summit, after the very first Plantfit Summit, people that have watched your interview are blown away. And now, 3 years on, it's because of the summit that now they're health coaches, they're starting their own plant pure pods, they're doing vegan potlucks. It's absolutely amazing to see someone who's experienced their own transformation, and like for yourself, having an evangelical energy that exudes every pore of your skin, and you just want the world to feel the benefit. At the same time, it's just so frustrating because people
Yes,
just
it
won't
is.
wake up.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know anything about the South in the United States, but the South is we are just a hard-headed group of people who are stuck in old traditional ways. If it like my bam was, if it hair lips hell, we gonna still do it. It doesn't matter that it makes us have heart disease at a rate higher than any other state in the nation. It doesn't matter. We gonna still do it because we do gratons. That's what we do. You know, we fry pork skins and fat, and that's what we do. We make boudin, we make sausage, even if it kills us. Damn it! And it's like, and that's a bastardization of an idea. Like, it's so warped to me. Because what we really are about as a people, like all of us, we all come from a peasantry. We all come from scarcity, and it's about survival. That's what our traditions, that's what all of our cultures are at its base root, is how did your people survive? And we've taken these survival mechanisms and meals and recipes and traditions and completely gluttonized them and turned them into a thing that makes us less than, which is exactly the opposite of why they were invented in the first place. That's not upholding tradition. That's a toxic imitation of honor to me.
Indeed,
You know?
indeed. For sure. I guess right now, although we've started chatting already, welcome to the podcast. I'm a
Yeah.
little bit late on the welcome. I remember still, you were the very first person that got the PlantFit Summit started. So thank you. Thank you and thank you. I remember I was at the library and I told my other half, my better half, Toby, say, we got our first interview. It's Josh LaJaunie. Yes. And then 3 years later, here we are, and we're chatting again. I think the very first time I chatted with you was with my wife, Emily, and Emily holds you in high, high regard. So welcome and thank you for being here again. So you're just constantly evolving and you're constantly pushing, and you're one guy, it's when I was a kid, my dad bought me this little punching bag with the sand at the bottom. You inflate it
Yeah.
and you punch it and it
Yeah.
just pops back up. That's you, man. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, what's the latest and greatest in your life that's been happening right now?
Right now, I am excited almost to the point of tears to be back running 40, 50, 60-mile weeks again and getting myself oriented towards not only going and completing some ultras, which I've been doing. I've done that, but to start to race again. I still feel some issues in my back, but I'm learning how to live with a lot of that stuff. I've learned a lot about treatment. I've gotten a lot of help along the way, and I've changed a lot of things. But right now, I'm excited about Leadville on June 15th. I'm going to go run in the mountains. So I've been building myself back up. That on the physical front has been so exciting because in 2017, not only did I fail in Liverpool and not get my Boston qualifying time that I wanted, but I deeply hurt myself. And then at the end of that same year, I lost my grandfather, in August. And then in December, I almost lost my Great Dane. We went through a period of about a month where he had to have 2 surgeries, and we had to make huge financial decisions to help our dog, And so it's been a rough couple of years. It's been a rough couple of years for me, but to be back to the point to where I am right now, to be collecting more miles and all of that stuff is kind of in the rearview mirror a little bit. And to be back physically to the point to where, yes, now instead of can I go survive, now I'm like, ooh, I can't wait to go use the fitness I've built on the mountain, you know? So physically, I'm excited to be right there. But also since we talked last, my book, Sick to Fit, was out. Me and Howie wrote a book together. And so Howie has just been wonderful to me, like to be able to articulate the ideas that I have in my head, some of the things that I've learned, and he can really like pull them out of me and spell them out in a way that I just don't have the vocabulary for a lot of times. And so he's been like crucial in my growth on that side of things in my life, being able to help grow my messaging and my ability to help other people and be of service in the same way that I grow my running and trying to get bigger and bigger races done. Same thing on that front. So being able to get that book out was a huge, huge step. And beyond that, we also working on our Well Start Health platform. And so it's just a constant evolution of things, and me like having different realizations and epiphanies on a daily basis, and taking new doors and closing others. And like, it's such a dynamic existence. It's scary at times. It feels like a tightrope, it'll keep you awake at night sometimes, but it does feel like a worthy sort of tightrope. It does feel like a worthy thing, to be grinding yourself.
Of course.
know?
I look at where you are right now. You're almost in a sense, the top of the mountain. You can almost see the peak. Maybe kind of rewind a little bit and maybe just give us a snapshot of where you were before. And I know we talked about pull-ups. I think it wasn't even about pull-ups back in the day. It was just kind of getting off the couch and even breathing and tucking your shirt in the last time we chat.
Yeah,
so maybe paint the picture of where you were before.
Yeah, sure. Like, so if I grew up in South Louisiana, which is in the South, and in the South of the South, and I grew up in a family that we ate a lot. It was a big family deal, and so I got up to 400 pounds, just like everyone else, like a lot of other people in my family. I wasn't the only 400-ish pounder in my family. And so I was a big, heavy guy for a very long time. A lot of fried food, a lot of alcohol, and a lot of laying around. It was like we used the truck to go from here to there and lay and sit around, and then you get in a boat and go over there and you sit down. Like, everything was, we just didn't move very much, but we ate a lot, and we were always cooking and feeding ourselves and feeding people. And that was the life we led. I grew up in that life. Not only did I eat that way, but I also played football. So that required me to be a big person, right? And so those things, and then I was injured playing football, so that gave me a physical excuse. Oh man, boy, but for this back injury, I would be in better shape. But now I'm just a fat ex-football player. Ha ha ha, jokey joke, make jokes about myself, that kind of a thing, that kind of a life. And then, things just kind of came to a head at one point in my life. I found myself over 400 pounds, not really happy physically with myself. I was going back to school, learning some things, feeling smart. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and change this weight, and just started moving in the direction of trying to just shed some pounds at first. That's all the shift was. I really just, in the very beginning, Luke, I just wanted to not look fat in a suit. That's all it was. It was that. but it was also the aligning of a few other planets as well, because it was my wife had made me feel confident in myself. That's a big one. You know, she spurred me into going back to school. Then while I'm in school, halfway through that, she doubles down and says, I believe in you so much, I'm going to marry you. You know? And then in 2010, the Saints win the Super Bowl. Right? And so 2011, I'm like, man, all of this, like, things are blossoming in my life I never imagined possible. Could I maybe not be fat one day also? Is that possible? Let's start moving the needle on it. And we just started, but I just approached with more pragmatism this time than what I had always done before, which was use Xenadrin with ephedra or hydroxycut or eat mini thins instead of food and drink water or whatever. This time it was changing. It was me being pragmatic. It was me taking myself as a case study, and it brought me to running. Reluctantly, as a fat guy, I hated running, but running brought me eventually to a realization, to a surrender of discomfort. Because I started to realize the more uncomfortable, the more it sucked, the more weight I was losing. The more I was willing to let my physical discomfort stick around temporarily, like during a workout, the more results I saw. And it made me push harder against that resistance. It's harder against that resistance. And that made me fall in love with not running, not the sensations of running, but the idea of pushing against what is trying to stop you.
Speaking of what's trying to stop you, I mean, you were the only one that was deciding to change this course of your life. But when you're in that environment of Louisiana, your community is doing the same thing. And, there's, of course, there's going to be naysayers. How did you kind of overcome that?
Well, I didn't at first, Luke. I didn't overcome that at all. I totally succumbed to eating po' boys and drinking beer and eating crawfish. I can share a picture with you after this. So after I had lost, say, 90 pounds or so, I'm sitting at a table with a whole big freaking pile of crawfish heads and tails that I just devoured, and I'm smashing crawfish. So I was using exercise. I was using my running at that time to mitigate what I was still doing in the food. And at that time I was thinking, I'm going to be able to do both. And it was working until it didn't. And that's what most people call a plateau. That's where people lose 50, 60, 80 pounds. And all it is you just really haven't decided to take the next moves. You're stuck saying, oh man, I work out a lot. No, but have you changed? You haven't really changed you haven't really turned a pragmatic eye to your actual food choices because you're warm and fuzzy about their traditional meaning. You know what I'm saying? And so if you're willing to go there, then you get big change, you know?
So what were your reference points? Because I think some people look at weight, look at the weighing scale. Some people look at their waist circumference. Were there any reference points for you to kind of know that you were on the right track and you were just kind of pushing forward as you went ahead?
Yeah, that's beautiful. The weight was an easy one for me. It was low-hanging fruit early on. Because not only was I big and extra heavy, but I was also extra motivated because I was, I just didn't want to be fat anymore. And so weight was coming off pretty fast. So that helped me feel good. Once I got a scale that could weigh me, that was important. And then that gave me my first goal. My first benchmark was not to be 195 pounds. My first benchmark was to get back to playing weight. When I played football, I weighed about 300 pounds. But for me, that required losing over 100 pounds. to get to 300, you know? So that's where I was headed. Just get to 300. Let's get back to them 290s, baby. Because at 290, I'm like a cat. You know, that's what I was saying. Like, you know what I mean?
Totally. So in that sense, you were your own inspiration, or did you actually have anyone you were kind of looking up to and getting inspired by?
Yeah, no, because in Thibodeau, there were some guys that I was inspired by in a big way. In my hometown, there's a guy who actually does the same kind of work I do in the sewer business. So his family was also in the sewer business and more in portalets and different stuff, whereas we're more in the actual structures, treatment plants and stuff. And so anyway, long story short, I had seen this man live a certain way my entire life here. And he's like in his late 60s now, dude, still shredded with hose pipes over his biceps and abs. Dude's a monster. And I know how he lived. I know, and he's all in on all the time. And so he was a big inspiration to me in my life. I don't even know if he ever realized it, but I had always seen him around, and that helped pull me. I also saw some guys at the gym who were older, who were getting outside and jogging, and it looked like it was very difficult for them, but they were doing it anyway. They'd have their little old white dude, like sweatband on their head, and they out there, you know, jogging in the heat. And I'm like, damn, if he can do it, I'll get my big ass out there and do it too, you know? And so that's the real early beginnings. And then as I started to broaden, because at the same time, the internet for me was also blossoming at that time, because school had introduced me to how to manipulate technology to best use the internet and search engines and all, how to learn stuff, YouTube and audio books, all of this stuff. So at the same time, I'm also learning about the world at large and learning about people like John Gabriel. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he was the first person I'd ever heard of that had lost over 200 pounds and didn't look like a deflated sack of shit. That's what I was scared I was going to look like, some weirdo. And I saw a shirtless picture of him, and you could tell that he had lost a bunch of weight. But it was like, oh, wow, so the skin will change. And that's all I needed. I was like, oh, that's like, it was a huge one. Yeah, so things like that early on gave me like aspirational, like sort of images to move toward, for sure. Whether it was helping me surrender to something or aspire to something, there was definitely some inspiration along the way. Try to look back on those days to try and like glean some use for people now, you know. But yeah, there was definitely some things that propelled me, that pulled me. Not to mention one of my best buddies since kindergarten, Jeff. My buddy Jeff Thibodeau was right there with me, jogging right on the side of me. He didn't need to be running that damn slow. He wasn't 200 pounds overweight, but I would be jogging my 15-minute pace, and he'd be right there with me, next to me, power hiking, you know? Yeah, it's beautiful.
It surely is. I really, really love your story. And going back to our Plantfit Summit 2017 conversation, I didn't know that was a really tough year for you. And I mean, knowing where you are right now and seeing that glow in your eyes and knowing
Yeah.
the big changes that are going to be happening in your life with this big race ahead, you just look so much more confident in yourself. We actually had a conversation a while, I think probably a year ago, a few months ago, I think on Instagram, and you're just saying that you just got injured and you felt like crap. And I'm just saying, freaking dude,
Yes, I remember that.
just keep at it, brother. I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. I maybe
Oh, it
miles.
makes me, I remember that now, like a ton of bricks. That message is just hitting me. I do remember that. Like, I tried to, um, man, I went through some dark physical times, bro.
When you're down at your lowest, it feels like you're in the depths of hell.
Yeah.
It's either you sink or swim. It's either you go deeper into this downward spiral, or you just go, what? You know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna wake hell out of
Yep.
this and just get out of it. And what actually happens as you kind of rise up, you just slowly focus on one step at a time. You go up that staircase one step at a time, and where you are right now, you look back, you just appreciate Leadville, you appreciate everything so much more, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. You know, you just keep, and it's hard to like coach people through these times because it's like, oh, I did everything right, and I'm now dealing with this situation where I'm injured or this major thing happened, and you know, but for that I would be on the track and it's like, man, you don't, like, that is life. That's what we got to. That's when it matters most, is when it all falls to pieces and it just turns to shit. You know, that's where, when we make it through when we weather those periods with the least amount of damage, as we learn how to weather those periods better and better and better, without, like one of our clients last night said, without falling off the wagon, you know, like without going completely overboard. I didn't eat fried food and fast food. Well, hey, that's the movement in the right direction. And like when we can maintain those types of good decision-making skills through those tumultuous times, my God, we're on the way to perpetual growth. We'll constantly ratchet forward if we can make it through those sketchy times. And I'm thankful that I was, you know, looking back at it, as bad as it sucked, you know, it made me stronger. I was looking at my Strava stuff. I haven't had these big peak weeks of 90 miles or 80 miles. But what I have had, if you look at my Strava, across the weeks for this past calendar year compared to, say, 2015, 2016, you're seeing more consistency. I'm getting a lot more 40 to 50 mile weeks in a row than I ever did before. It was a lot of boom up here and then boom, a 10 mile week, 20 mile week, and then boom, a 60, 80 mile week, right? But now I'm developing, and I have a coach now we're doing this on purpose. So it just feels, even though I had a huge setback, I feel like I'm on path to probably be a better runner because of it all.
Better and stronger. While we're on Strava, I'd love to know what your 10 km pace is like.
So I'm still pretty slow right now on the bounce back, but the Crescent City Classic is a 10K, and I ran that at about a 6:59 average. But that's slow. I mean, that's about my fourth. That's about my fourth fastest 10K. My fastest 10K was I ran 39:55, whatever pace that is. That was my fastest 10K. First one was an hour and 43 minutes. I was still 325 pounds though. The first time I did a 10K was an hour and 43 minutes.
I went 43 at 320 pounds. That is insane.
And then, but in 2017, right before I went to Liverpool, I was in good shape. Right before I went to Liverpool, I ran the Crescent City Classic in 39:55. So I think that's a little quicker than a 6:30 pace for 10K. Right around 6:30 pace.
That is fast. I remember when I did my 10K, like I hats off. Like right now, I'm just gonna do this. Put my hands down and give you full respect. I was pushing Emily. You know, Emily's an endurance runner as well. So I was running with her, and she was running when she was pregnant with Sienna. So she wanted to still run and accompany me. And I was pushing so hard, and I finished it in 1 hour flat. And you're telling me at 39? That's crazy. That's insane, brother.
Well, my set that 1 hour benchmark. You know, you asked, like, how do I know that I was on the right way? We talked about weight, but in the running part, in the physical, like, achievement part, where it started to become not exercise, it started to become something else, was me trying to achieve that first sub 1 hour 10K. That was the second time. So year one was an hour 43. And then for year two, my wife was like, hey, let's try to get in under an hour. So that's what 2013 was, me trying to get in under an hour. And we got in 59:56.
Wow, 4 seconds.
59:56.
You were meant to get that one.
I was about to die.
I can
imagine.
got it.
And it went from there. Yeah, and it just went from there. I've been running that race every year since, and I love it. It's like sort of all my running revolves around my classic performance every year. I love it. I love love running that 10K. I really do.
Love it. And what I find about the way, and I've listened to other interviews that you've done on different podcasts about the way you approach running has almost a primal and animalistic nature, the way you approach the run and the way you actually describe it. You're going there to hunt. So explain that whole concept and explain that whole mindset.
Right. Well, I grew up in Louisiana, our state slogan is we're sportsman's paradise. And that's what I know. That's what I grew up doing, sportsman stuff. And that means being a Louisiana sportsman means hunting and fishing. Right? And to be a good hunter or a good fisherman, you got to kind of understand, the biology of the animal. You got to understand what their tendencies are. You got to understand what they're eating. You got to understand like all of these things. And in doing that, you see animals' behaviors in their rawest forms. So that does a couple of things for me. Is it helps me see myself more as one of these raw animals because I've seen so many of them in the wild doing their thing. And I, a smart animal, have used their thing to catch them or kill them, right? But I know what they do a very simple set of things. And so that jars something in me like, oh, I'm an animal, like a deer, like a speckled trout, like a squirrel, like a bird. I have a specific way that I move. I have a specific thing that I eat, right? And so we're trapped by that thing that we do, by capitalism. And a lot of things prey on our tendencies, just like a deer hunter might prey on a deer that's used to eating corn from a deer feeder out in the woods, right? And so that all swirls together in my mind for me to take an approach to fitness and nutrition that doesn't feel so clinical and blasé. It feels visceral, like it feels organic and real, like the heartbeat and the breath inside of my body. Because it's the animal I am. I'm just being the animal, and I think it's a more authentic way to be a sportsman, right? Because if you think about trying to reap what Louisiana has to offer in the form of wildlife, right? Try to think about that in terms of, try to think about that in a vacuum of petroleum to leverage, like without the internal combustion engine. And let's just imagine ourselves trying to collect a limit of speckled trout, 25 speckled trout per person per boat, right? Try to do that without an engine or a metal for a hook or monofilament line or gears for a rod and reel or fiberglass or all of these different materials, right? So for me, that says, okay, all of those things need to be leveraged to get that food out of the environment. That tells me that minus those things, like our natural amount, maybe wouldn't have been zero, but it'd been a hell of a lot less than what we're able to do. But we also would have spent a whole bunch of energy trying to do it, whether we were rolling a pirogue through a swamp or marsh, trying to walk through swamp to go collect oysters or whatever the thing is, we would have used a lot of energy to get a little bit of food, right? And so I take that and turn it into a sport in my mind. That's what running is to me. It's like wasting energy almost, as a way of giving praise and giving thanks for all of the food I don't have to work for anymore. You know what I'm saying? And so I've taken that and like sort of done some alchemy in my own mind to sort of melt things together to come up with something that still lets me feel like I'm Louisianan, and I still feel Cajun, and I still feel like I identify as a sportsman, and I'm proud that I know where to go find the trout. So if you want to go put a camera on them or whatever, I know where they live. I know where to go hunt them down. You know, we don't have to kill them, but I can still hunt them down, right? And so the chase has become my entire life. I love the chase, and all the chase is running. It's the race. And that has all sort of done a mind meld for me. And it checks all of the boxes for me, bro. It checks all of the boxes. It lets me feel athletic. It lets me feel like a sportsman. It lets me feel like a hunter. It lets me feel like an animal. And it doesn't feel like exercise. It's just my existence. It's me being the animal, right? And you exude sort of the same thing, because you remind me of what I think of what a human animal would look like if you like happened up on one who just was in the jungle for 30 years doing human shit. He's gonna be shredded and in good shape and know all the right raw fruits to eat, right? And that's kind of like I like to do those thought experiments often on, what would the most authentic version of human be, and how can I do or be, and how can I mimic those things in my life? The more of those I can Tetris piece into my life, the better I'll be in the long term. And as time goes, I'll find new ways to get different pieces into my lifestyle and grow even further. Trust in that. Don't worry about knowing that the specific steps that you're going to take up in 2 years from now. Just grow that way, And so,
yeah, I love it. I love it. The thing is that, like, you talk about the human animal and animalistic in the sense that your running makes you who you are, makes you primal, makes you raw, makes you feel alive. And I think by eating the food that we're meant to eat, it almost becomes an infinity loop. It feeds into itself. You become more of who you are. And you just see that figure eight that goes round and round and round. And I look at myself when I first made the switch for animal welfare. Like, I watched a documentary on Earthing, and I was just pissed off that I was lied to for all this life. And that was 7 years ago. 7 years ago. Fast forward to where I'm at. I've competed as an athlete. I've written a book. I've done the summit. I'm now running my podcast. And it, like you, doing all your different races. For me now as an entrepreneur, it's about constantly pushing and exploring new ground to grow this message and become more of who I am. And it really started with something as simple as the food that I ate. What was your relationship with food back in the day versus what your relationship with food is now?
Yeah, so food played a lot bigger role in my life. It was really a hobby. I remember spending a lot of my childhood Saturday mornings watching cooking shows with my Bam Bam. We were watching people cook, and then we would pick something, and then we would cook all day long and drink and then invite a bunch of people over that evening to eat the things that we had cooked, right? So food was a central role in my life. For various reasons, as I started to lose weight, my grandfather's influence in our family began to wane, as his disease progressed. So that tendency, him driving the cook-off, the cookouts and stuff, that wasn't around, just to be truthful. So that was able to be moved away from as I started to lose weight at the same time. And it was this sad reckoning, like, oh, he's this way because of all of these ways we ate. I was starting to learn all of that at that time, right? But so my food in the beginning, even as I lost my first 100 pounds or so, was all about, that was like a family member to me, the food. And the running was really a way for me to, I figured out how I'm going to lose weight and still be able to eat like this. Boom, I could run 10 miles and eat whatever I want. So that's the introduction to running, for me to be able to hold on to the food. And ironically, running brought me to a place where I was able to let go of a lot of those traditions. Now, granted, my mom and my brother have created a bunch of recipes, and they have their own cookbook they just released called Pure Ambrosia. It's a bunch of recipes, things that my grandfather and I would cook, and my brother and my mom, that my grandfather would teach us how to cook, and they've just taken the oil and the animal products out of it and made a gumbo or a jambalaya or whatever, right? So we still have those old foods in our lives, but they're not quite as hyper palatable as some of those old traditional foods. So moving away from letting the palate completely rule everything, more salt, more fat, more sugar, no matter what, if it makes ours better than Mr. So-and-so's down the street, then put it, right? And so that, rather than that, how healthy is my food making my family is how my mom's shift has made, right? That how am I using the power of food to help protect my family? That's how my thought on food has changed as well. Instead of me using the power of food to bring family together and gluttonize, how am I using the power of food to help ensure my family's well-being as we move forward into a sketchy era? Look at our healthcare outcomes in this country. Look at the trajectory of chronic disease. It's crazy, man. And it's like a free money pot of gold for you if you want to just change your food. Do you understand how much cash you're gonna waste on co-pays and going fill prescriptions at Walgreens and buying diabetes socks and getting canes and hemorrhoid donut pillows? Like, I know I did it for my Bam Bam. I know that existence, how expensive that is. To have your shower changed so you can have a shower that you can walk in without having to step on anything, and have a stool in there so it kind of handicap-rise your shower. Like, all of these expenses that come with not being able to move like an Esselstyn or a Campbell when you get into your 80s, right?
Speaking of that, I mean, I've spoken to a few doctors so far, and one doctor that I spoke to today, actually for the podcast, he just ran a 11K, and I know of Dr. Jim Loomis, as well, just ran his.
Yeah, that's my man.
He just did his triathlon.
He killed it.
He killed it. And also, I remember also interviewing Dr. Greger, and these doctors are just healthy. And Dr. Colin Campbell, he's like 80 plus, but he's just sharp as a needle.
Yep, I actually walked a mile with Dr. Campbell to Whole Foods in Indianapolis for the ACLM conference, and I was blown away. I mean, he was walking with a cane, but he was telling me the whole time, the only reason I'm walking with this cane is because they said I have to. I don't really need this thing, and so. But we walked a mile to Whole Foods and had lunch. He and his wife and Howard had made the introduction because Howard had co-written Whole with him. So Howard Howard goes way back with Dr. Campbell, and he made the introduction, and we all decided to go eat lunch together. And Olivia, the CEO of our company, WellStart Health. And so, that was such a treat and then I was telling him about my grandfather and how, like, there was not a chance that my grandfather would have been able to walk. You know, we were excited if he could walk 100 feet. Like, that's because he had bounced back from 265 or so in his late 70s to, I mean, not 265. That was his cholesterol. When we talk his weight, he was in the 360s in his late 70s. And then as the family went plant-based, he had gotten down to like 200 pounds in his early 80s. So he had gotten up out of his hover-round wheelchair. We didn't use it anymore. He started walking, using a cane, but he walked. So it was progress for him. But walk a mile to Whole Foods and back? No, not a chance. And so to be able to see that, that was just really powerful. And to talk with him and to hear how bright and engaged. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's a
brilliant human.
Brilliant human. I mean, he forms the backbone of what we know as whole food plant-based nutrition as we know it right now. And he's fought a lot of battles, and it's been, I'm sure, back in the dark ages of what he was doing. I mean, he was a truth seeker. I mean, the amount of resistance he experienced, and only now in the last, in recent times, he started to be recognized for his work. And still, people are still, at China Study?
Well, remember in Gregor's video, he talks about how it took, I think he said, like, what was it? There was something like 6,500 studies that said smoking caused cancer before it was actually recommended to not smoke by the Surgeon General or whatever. It's like, you would think like after 1,000, there would be sufficient, or 2,000, or 3,000. Over 6,000.
My goodness.
Yeah. And it's the same thing I feel like because look, the data's out there, the EPIC studies out there, the China study, they can say what they want about the China study, but I mean, I love Garth's thing. It was like, just because, where there's a lot of smoke, there's probably fire, right? So let's not do the whole, let's not break apart the overall overarching meaning of this, which is why I think he wrote Whole as a follow-up anyway, let's take a 30,000 foot view here. Let's not get caught up in the reductionism.
Exactly.
To prove the China study wrong.
Exactly.
With reductionism, really, like individual out of context facts, right? And so I don't know. It's got to be super frustrating, but watching him struggle with that message has helped my life because because Whole was created. Low carb fraud was created out of that. Yeah,
that was a great book as well. Yeah,
that was another great one. So those things have helped. That struggle has helped educate, I think, droves of people.
Of course.
Including you and myself, I believe.
Indeed. I want to kind of circle back to what you were saying about your Bam Bam as well, having that donut pillow, and not just Bam Bam, but people in general who are in extreme pain when they need to go to Walgreens to get their prescriptions filled and their joints are hurting, they've got diabetes, they're about to amputate their leg. Yes, there's those guys out there who are extreme end of the line. And maybe they might wake up because they might die tomorrow. But there are the other side of people where they're not in enough pain to feel like, I'm just a little bit overweight, but I'm happy the way I am. Which brings me to the point of this whole fat acceptance movement right now, body positivity. What's your take on that, being where you were to where you are right now?
Yeah, body positivity is paramount. But I think we misuse the idea of it to hide complacency often. I need body positivity in my life right now. Just because I've lost 220 pounds, 230 pounds, doesn't mean I don't need to actively, as a practice, be positive about my body and my own mind, because my body still looks weird compared to another 195-pound guy. So I need to love myself just exactly how I look. And that's a practice. And that practice, when I see it get bastardized and used as an excuse for someone to stay 200 pounds overweight as if they found their calling in life, what? We'll never agree on that, pimp. No, you cannot make that argument for me. You can be a little, I might say, yeah, human bodies come in different shapes and sizes, and some are a little fluffier, some are a little leaner, no doubt. But there's no natural 200-pound overweight. So the whole idea here is living, you love yourself, you love the human you are, you love that kernel, you love getting to that nougat center of authenticity, of humanness. It doesn't include 200 extra pounds of visceral fat. I'm sorry, I don't care what sort of rhetoric you shroud that in. I'm sorry. And that hurts lots of people's feelings and lots of vegans' feelings. But you missing a huge step. And there's still body positivity needed in addressing, how you're going to feel along the way. But at no point is 200 pounds overweight the landing place. I'm sorry. And that's not a Josh thing. That's Mother Nature, man. There's a reason it hurts to move when you're that heavy. There's a reason that you can't wipe good when you're that heavy. Because nature's like, hey, this exceeds design capacity. We can convince ourselves rhetorically of all sorts of wonderful fantasies about loving myself, and putting flowers under my big man titty to accentuate my fat roll instead of doing something about it. You're enabling many, many other fat people, many people that need to start turning the rudder towards better in their life, to just completely give up and think of being fat as the end. And that's, I think, an abuse. I think that's an abuse of people who are looking for help on social media. And I think that the body positivity rhetoric, the lexicon, is toxic. I really do. And more enabling than useful, in my humble opinion. And I hope, if that hurts people's feelings, that's good. Because one of the, jarring truths of me being able to change eventually was having my feelings hurt a few times, to make me look at myself and go, you're right. That person's right. That was cutting, but it was accurate.
I think we live in a culture where everyone's kind of walking on eggshells, wanting to be PC, but it's not really helping or serving anyone if you're trying to be PC when for example, the person's obviously, like you said, 200 pounds overweight. Whether you're positive or not, your arteries are clogged, your blood sugars are all whacked, and you might actually just die tomorrow, whether you're happy or not.
That's a toxic imitation of love. You're not loving yourself with chicken if it's killing you. I love ropes, so I'm going to hang myself with this rope. I just love myself so much, I'm going to tighten this rope up until I die. It's really silly if we allow ourselves to think of it, but that's not the tide of social norms. The tide of social norms has us tightening that rope every day. It's frustrating to be a messenger of something different.
For someone that's listening right now, waiting for the perfect conditions, how can they take charge of their lives?
Right? Of course, do, right? But here's what to do specifically. Engage physically in some extracurricular bipedalism, right? So that means you're already walking, you're already getting a bunch of steps a day. Go spend whatever you can afford in your life right now, whether it's physically or time wise, whatever you can afford to do, whether it's an hour or 20 minutes, go for some extracurricular walking and or jogging to the point to where you sweat, whatever, something that pushes your norm. Go do that. Not because it's going to help you burn calories, not because it's going to make room for the sleeve of Oreos you want to eat this evening, right? But just go do it because you're trying to discover what it feels like to finally be a human animal, right? And stay in touch with me. Whether it's directly or just, fly on the wall style on social media. And remember that consistency trumps intensity, right? So we don't want to take that 20-minute effort and double it by the end of the week. No, we would much rather have that exact same effort for 4 weeks running before we get bored with it and want to move forward with some other idea. So what we want to do is just seed a behavior change, a physical behavior change early. I think physical behavior change is very important. Like physiologically speaking, the food's more important than anything. But I think from a behavior change and from a mindset point of view to where we can really, really sort of wrench the trajectory of our current outcomes, like physical change is important. Physical movement is important. So that's where it started with me. But I think trying to create, or not trying, but making that moment in your day right now, not tomorrow, I'm going to start. That's a good idea, Josh. I'm going to start that Monday. Get used to the idea of going, screw it. Take your work clothes off and take the rest of the day off and go home right now. Now, be risky with it, crazy with it, absurd with it, unabashed about it. Do it like that. It'll change your life.
I love it. It's certainly changed yours. And I mean, it's brought us to this connection, and it's brought you to many thousands of people that you speak to at each Veg Fest, and the thousands of followers that follow you on Instagram and social media. I mean, it's just been incredible. And it brought you to Rich Roller. And that's initially how I knew of your existence. Through the Rich Roll podcast, and he's another inspiration of mine as well. And just a final question, and this is a question that I ask everyone that I speak to. What does being awake mean to you?
Being awake means, to me, it's being okay with the vulnerability that comes with loneliness. Yes, we're herd creatures. Yes, we're pack animals, but a few among us have the responsibility, I think, to take those scary paths, those paths least taken. Some maybe it's balls, maybe it's naivete, right? But to be awake means to be able to see truth and go towards it, even if everyone is pulling you the other way. And that's a very lonely place. It doesn't feel heroic, right? So being awake, we can talk about it like it's heroism and all of that shit, but it is lonely, especially in South Louisiana, right? So being awake is often only possible as tolerable as you are for some loneliness in your life. And that solitude, if you want to get conditioned to it, there's no other better sport than running. The more comfortable you can get with yourself, the more you're shielded against that sort of loneliness that can come with being awake.
Love it, Josh. So for those people out there listeners out there who've obviously drawn a lot of inspiration from what you do, how can they get in touch with you?
On Instagram, that's probably the easiest way. I'm my name on social media, on Instagram, Josh LaJaunie, all one word. That's my handle on Instagram. Pretty easy to find there. And I have my website, which is my name, joshlajaunie.com. Another one, pretty easy to find me. And check out if you're, I don't know, my pet project, my passion, I'm actually like moving myself professionally towards it. Check out wellstarthealth.com. This is what I'm really working on. It's in the App Store now.
Awesome.
I'm just so proud to be a part of it. I just did a video I'm going to post on YouTube this morning about it. But check out wellstarthealth.com. Go download the app and feel your way through there. That's what I'm up to.
Awesome.
And hit me up with some questions about it. Tell me, give me some feedback, because this is it's really cool to feel like you can do something, like you can make a difference. And luckily I've fallen in with a team that I'm gonna ride their shirt tails. I'm gonna ride their coattails all the way to success, baby.
Hunt them down. Oh,
yeah.
And we didn't actually manage to chat. So of course, do check out your book, From Sick to Fit, as well.
Yeah,
I'll put that
Sick to Fit.
Yeah, I'll put that on the show notes as well, because
there's a link to it from my website.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome, brother. Well, it's always an honor and pleasure. And although we've kind of connected through modern technology, I still look forward to the day. We still look forward to the day to meeting you face to face.
We have to make it happen.
We need to make it happen. Emily will be running with you. I'll be trying to catch up. I'll be looking at your coattail, but I'm going to push anyway.
Sounds fun, man.
That was a truly inspiring and incredible story by Josh. I'm so glad to know Josh and his knowledge, wisdom, and his ability to speak from the heart, to share cold hard truths about rising up from setbacks, makes him such a champion and legend. For any resources or links mentioned in the episode, visit awakemethod.com/podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I truly appreciate your time being here. If you know anyone who needs a dose of motivation, do share this episode with them. Until the next one, live once, eat plants. Bye.